And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, and as always, I am podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and RHOLM22 is Ryan Holmes. And we're going to get right to that episode right now. But first and foremost, student body right, USC podcast shirts, Put on Raiders podcast shirts. We have all the shirts available, sweatshirts, all the stuff like that. DM the show. My contact information is also in the bio as well. But on Twitter, you can just DM me. On Instagram, you can DM me as well. It is Put on Waivers _ podcast. That's Put on Waivers _ podcast. Check out the show, get a shirt, do all that good stuff, and enjoy our conversation that Ryan and I had about the Raiders firing Dave Ziegler, firing Josh McDaniels, and firing Nick Lombardi and everybody else who has any Patriot ties to the organization.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
This is a very bad situation in every way for Josh McDaniels. Didn't score, didn't have the locker room, didn't have all these things. And when you keep players past longer than everybody else in the league, and you're not seeing results, Ryan, you get fired. And you just really get fired. People, players don't mind working long hours, but if there's no results to it, they're gonna say, hey, no mas.
Yeah, I think the biggest development over the last 24 hours was the fact that Mark Davis gave him a 6-year contract. To me, I was like, you didn't have to give Josh McDaniels a 6-year contract to get him to coach this team. And thankfully,
Yes.
Mark made the right decision and moved on. He took over a team that went to the playoffs, that won 10 games. Now, you can argue whether or not that was sustainable, where the roster was at the time, but Josh McDaniels came in and was hired to take this offense to the next level. And not only have they regressed, they're one of the worst offenses in the league. And when you look at the personnel they have on offense, there's no reason for that. And it boils down to, I think the system's outdated. I think a lot of the route concepts on the outside are longer developing. They take time. A lot of it is similar. They're running a lot of the same plays. You saw the defenses the last 3 weeks just sitting on the inside routes of those outside receivers. They're not throwing the ball outside. There was no ability to mix it up. They could throw out routes for a whole game and just move the ball down the field because the other team's giving it to them every time. And when you start sitting back and looking at the resources that were given to Josh McDaniels, this is an epic failure. And I tweeted a couple of weeks ago, what was worse, the Art Shell 2.0 or Josh McDaniels 2.0? And arguably it's the Josh McDaniels 2.0 just based on the talent that he had on this offense to work with. And ultimately, they've blundered every decision they've made at the quarterback position, and in a quarterback-driven league, that's going to cost you your job. And everything that's happened with Jimmy Garoppolo, whether he was choice A or choice B, doesn't matter at this point. That's the direction they went into. They could have traded draft picks. They could have tried to move up. They could have got one of these rookies. They put all their eggs in Jimmy Garoppolo's basket. And the fact Jimmy Garoppolo has been one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL cost a lot of people jobs, and it's ultimately going to cost Jimmy his job because I doubt he plays again for the Raiders. He has an injury guarantee in his contract similar to Carr. They can't put him back on the field at this point. They're going to have to roll with Aiden O'Connell and Brian Hoyer and then eat the dead money next year when they move on and make him a June 1 post-June 1 release. So they haven't got anything right with the contract. They didn't get anything right in the draft. They haven't gotten a lot right in free agency. And they're leaving the Raiders with a nice basket of dead money on their way out the door. So they've ruined a lot of things in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, they really they blew shit up quick. They really did. As far as that goes, they did not know the way to really say it. Just from they made 4 quarterback moves. They weren't good ones. I mean, you can sit down and break down Derek Carr when you came here. And you should know that whether or not he's going to fit in what you want to do. You should know that. And then, you mentioned Mark Davis not having to give him a 6-year deal. Was it? I heard it was a 4-year deal, and then he gave him a 2-year extension this year. I'm not sure. I mean, coaching stuff is who knows. But either way, he put himself on the hook for 6 years when he didn't see any progress. So that really made no sense. the Carr thing. They gave him a no trade clause, all those things like that. O'Connell, Hoyer, Garoppolo. I mean, it's just you can't. In the next head coach, whoever it is, the next GM, if it is Champ Kelly, then it's Champ Kelly, whatever. The first and foremost thing that needs to happen is they need to solve the quarterback. If you're not talking about solving the quarterback position, then the door is over there and you can just leave, because that has to be what the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders does. He has to help to solve the quarterback position and take shots. If you fail, okay, but like you could take shots and pivot, but you got to take shots at getting a quarterback.
Yeah, they have to take the quarterback this year because this is the reset. You're going to have a new GM, most likely, new head coach, most likely. If Champ Bailey and Antonio Pierce somehow hold on to these jobs, let's just assume they don't, because they very rarely do in these cases. Now's when you hit the reset. Now's when you go get the quarterback. You let this group grow together. That was one of the big missteps the Raiders had. The Raiders have had continually is they haven't gone out and gotten that quarterback. They need to do that this year. And if they end up winning a few extra games and they end up with a 8th to 10th pick, you may have to give up future assets, but you have to do whatever it takes this year to get that quarterback. If it costs you a number 1 next year and multiple picks into next year's draft, then you just have to bite the bullet and do it. Don't just sit there and wait for someone to drop you and hope you can make it work. And I'm glad Aiden O'Connell's getting a chance. We're going to find out. I have a pretty good idea of how it's going to go, but Aiden O'Connell, now we have to remember, was a Dave Ziegler draft pick and was a Josh McDaniels handpicked draft pick. So even if he goes out and he's okay and shows a little bit of progress, he's probably going to be on this team for the next 3 years because he's cheap and he's in the NFL and he showed enough talent to develop as a backup, if not a low-end starter. Mm-hmm. But he's not the future. So whatever staff comes in, whatever GM, they're going to go out and they need to get their guy. No more playing roulette with the veterans. No more going to try to find stopgap guys. They need to draft and develop their own guy. And if you look around the league and everyone's like, the 49ers are loaning up on all these players because they have a quarterback, they're paying nothing.
Nothing to.
The teams that go out at the trade deadline and make these moves all have quarterbacks on rookie deals. They can absorb those salaries. That's how you have to build teams in the NFL in 2023 and 2024. Get that rookie quarterback, build everything around him. Going the other route and building up the team and then trying to add the quarterback doesn't really work because it takes too long and you have to pay those defensive players or offensive players you're building around the quarterback too quickly. It's about identifying the quarterback for a year or two. If he's the guy, you go all in year 3, year 4, year 5.
Yes, and that's clearly how teams are doing it. I'm not sure why this is a difficult process to see. You see all the good teams around the league. That's how they did it. And I think even the Jets who are coming in town in a couple of weeks, they were ready to pivot from Zach Wilson because they said our roster is loaded. His salary allowed us to acquire and draft all these players. They went and got Aaron Rodgers. He ended up getting hurt. It happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that happens. But at least they took a shot. You got to keep taking these shots over and over and over again until you find the guy. And then, and then once you find the guy, you just do hopefully what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. Hopefully what the Eagles are doing. You're doing what you got to do to win football games. Miami. I mean, with Tua, like, you know what I mean? Like, before you have to
even the 49ers, they tried with Trey Lance. It didn't work, but they tried. They were going that route as well.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, it just makes also, and it's not, if you build a roster the right way. Jalen Hurts is on his way to another playoff berth. Jalen Hurts has not ever played a season where he didn't make the playoffs with the Eagles. Like, if you do this thing the right way, you can get things done. I think also too, like, this is a time where you can reset the offensive and defensive lines, which we've been crying about forever. We really need to get the Raiders to understand that, like, the offensive and defensive line is going to be vital for them, and also linebacking core. I mean, the linebacking core has just been horrible. So hopefully they can do that. It's a lot to undertake. It may not take one off season, but at least just give us a direction here. Show us the light, and then I think the fans will be on board and be ecstatic about the direction of the Raiders. It just takes an individual to actually do what is needed and do what's right.
I don't know if there was a direction when Dave Ziegler and McDaniels, they came in and said, hey, this was a playoff team. Let's extend everyone. when they realized that that wasn't a good decision because I don't think they fully understood what was on the roster, which is
How?
unexcusable for Dave Ziegler because he's in the league, he's in a front office, he studies pro personnel, he should know or have an idea of what every player on that roster strengths and weaknesses were. But they came in and they said, we're going to run it back. And they tried and it didn't work. And then they just blew it up. And then had they gone in the direction of saying, hey, we're going to reset this thing and we're going to go out and get that rookie quarterback last year. Hey, we're going to run it back with Jared Stidham or a cheaper option or a Baker Mayfield. No, not only did they say we're going to go all in, we're going all in with Jimmy G, who's always hurt. Then they gave him a huge contract. Don't forget, he failed the physical when he showed up to sign the contract, and
He
they had to
did.
delay that. He had surgery. They had an out in the contract if they wanted to get rid of him before training camp. They chose not to. They had an out after this year if they basically left the contract as is. They chose not to. Then they rescheduled it right before the season started and pushed a bunch of money into next year, which the Raiders are going to have to eat. They did the same thing with Chandler Jones. They basically put a bunch of guaranteed money in it this offseason and pushed all that money into next year when they didn't have to do that. And just looking back on it, it's almost like they panicked and said, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going. Like, we know we have Max. We know we have Devontae. So we should try to get a veteran quarterback. So let's just roll the dice. And ultimately, that's the decision. That's the decision that cost Josh McDaniels his job. The decision to go with Jimmy Garoppolo has nothing to do with moving on from Derek Carr. It's the decision on who they brought in to replace Derek Carr is why he lost his job.
Yeah, no question about it. Antonio Pierce is now the interim head coach of the Raiders, and Champ Kelly, called him Champ Bailey like 4 times already. Champ Champ Kelly is the interim GM. If you had to say, like, one or two, like one thing, one guy has a chance to stay over another, it would probably be Bailey. It would probably be Kelly, right?
Yeah, I
If
would think Champ
possible,
Kelly of the two.
of the two.
Antonio, Champ Bailey's tied in around the league. He's been in several different spots. He doesn't have the New England ties. It can almost be like a clean break. Like, okay, let's see what Champ can do on his own.
Yeah.
I do have some hesitation there in that this would be like the fourth GM in a row that's never been a GM before. And Reggie McKenzie didn't get it done. Mike Mayock / John Gruden didn't get it done. Dave Ziegler didn't get it done. Maybe Champ Bailey's the guy. And it's going to depend on the kind of relationship he builds with Mark Davis. If he gets on Mark Davis's good side over the next couple of months and he says, Mark, this is what I want to do, and he has a vision, then I think he has a chance. He was a finalist when Dave Ziegler got hired. If they're going to do that, let Champ Bailey make the decisions. Let him go out and hire the coach he wants. Let him go out and draft the guys he wants and not cower to the head coaches or the bigger personalities.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see that the one reason, and nothing against Champ Kelly, I do think that the reason why he might get to stay is I'm assuming that a lot of the front office guys around got decent contracts as well. I'm not sure Mark Davis is really in a position where he wants to pay Ziegler and McDaniels for 4.5 more years and then have to retool the whole scouting department, pay a new GM. We don't know what kind of contract Champ Bailey has. Mark Davis has the money, but I don't even know if it's necessary. They might be able to roll with Champ Kelly here and see what he can do. Antonio Pierce, on the other hand, never been a head coach. He's never interviewed for head coaching jobs that I'm aware of. His name's never been thrown into the mix. This is more of let's keep some continuity on the defensive side with Patrick Graham calling plays. Let's see what the young Bo Hardegree can do on offense because it's the same system that he was with McDaniels in New England. He's more of a motivator. I like Antonio Pierce as a coach. Do I think he's ready to lead a team as a head coach? I'm not sure that he is. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe the players rally around him. Maybe the only way I think that he can, if he somehow pulls a Rich Bisaccia out of his hat here and this team gets to 8 or 9 wins and they beat the Chiefs and they're playing really good football down the stretch. Let's remember, Rich Bisaccia's team didn't play good football down the stretch. They won a lot of nail-biting, low-scoring games against some teams that were missing a lot of players, and they got the W's, which at the end of the day is all that matters. But it's not like that team was playing really well in the month of December. So if this Raiders team somehow figures it out and they get the ball to Devontae Adams and he goes off and he gets 150 yards a game and he's scoring 2 touchdowns a week and Josh Jacobs starts eating and this offense is putting up 25 to 30 points a game in December, then I would say Antonio Pierce has a chance. I still think that the odds of him being the next coach are very, very small.
Yeah, I don't mind a first-time head coach. I just don't want a guy who's off the beaten path, who has not. He's been in the league, but he's not a guy who has been interviewing 25 a bunch of different times, 25 times, whatever. I don't want that. I don't want that kind of inexperience. I'll take somebody who's interviewed for jobs and got turned down, stuff like that, but not somebody like Antonio Pierce. Unless this is his opportunity. I mean, I was in a Twitter space earlier today, and I held one today, and I was talking about Dan Campbell. Like Dan Campbell, his first opportunity to be a coach was an interim coach at Dallas. I mean, with the Miami Dolphins, and I felt like in that moment he probably learned a lot and was able to parlay that interview process and that experience into getting the head coaching job at Detroit. And Detroit's off and flying now, so we'll see what happens. Did you want to go over the was it bet GM whatever head coaching odds? I got some
Yeah, I have it
names in front of
here.
me.
I have
You
it
got
here
it
in
here.
front of me. I think the bottom half of the list you can just throw in the garbage can.
You don't think Deion Sanders or Charles Woodson are going to be or Bill Belichick going to be head coaches of the Raiders? Could you imagine?
You can throw Mayo and Riley and I would think the enemy as well in that trash can. I would say Mike McDonald as well. Like I don't think those guys have a chance to be the Raiders' next head coach.
Mike McDaniels from where?
Mike McDonald, he's the defensive coordinator in Baltimore. He was
From
at
Baltimore.
Michigan with
Okay.
Harbaugh, and then he's
Yeah.
been second year with the Ravens.
So Ben Johnson, he's gonna have his pick of the litter. As far he's 7-1. He's a guy who is gonna be able to pick whatever job he wants. Frank Smith, we're gonna hear that name a whole lot because the Dolphins score a lot of points. The Dolphins are a fun team to watch offensively. I would say, how much input does he have into that? I don't know. I don't necessarily
He's not
know.
calling the plays.
Yeah, he's
Let's
not.
set the. I saw. I think it was one of the beat writers. I think Bill Williamson put out a list of candidates, and he said Frank Smith is leading and calling plays. Frank Smith is not calling the plays in
No,
Miami.
it's
It's
Mike
Mike
McDaniel.
McDaniel.
Yeah, no question about that. Yeah,
There is a tie to the Raiders. He was the Raiders tight end coach, I believe, from 2018 to
he
2020. He's
was.
a younger guy. I don't think he may get
What
an
kind of?
interview. I would be
Yeah,
surprised if they hired Frank Smith, honestly, as the next head coach.
and I
There's
mean,
no
what kind of?
ties to Champ. If Champ Kelly gets a job, there's no tie to Champ Kelly either.
Yeah. Are we looking for people with ties to Champ Kelly though? That's a question that I would. I mean,
I would say no, not until he's
I would say
the
no.
GM.
Not GM. Yeah. That's some interesting. I mean, Dan, you got Quinn, you got Schwartz, two defensive guys. Not really like to me. Like I don't like second time around for both. Schwartz kind of crashed and burned, and then Dan Quinn took a team to a Super Bowl with Atlanta. They've been and Atlanta has struggled since he's left, so that could be something that could be an interview
He
process,
turned the
interview
Cowboys
thing.
defense around too, although they did have Diggs and Parsons. But I wouldn't
They
mind
have
Dan
played good
Quinn.
defense.
My only question would be who's the offensive coordinator? Because if you're going with a rookie quarterback, you need continuity there.
Yes.
And Dan Quinn's always had good offensive coordinators on his staff, so that
Yep.
is a bonus there.
I would roll. I mean,
Mark Davis needs to win and he needs to build. He needs to figure this out. Like they can keep rolling the dice on these first time coaches and first time GMs, but at some point they're going to need to have people that have been there and done that because there's no one in that building that's been there and done.
of the first year guys, who would be who would be a guy who would like. So hold on before I say that. Like, would Brian Flores interest you?
I would interview him. He wouldn't be my
Hmm.
first choice, but I would interview him.
Okay. Raheem Morris.
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay. And I don't see how Mayo is even on this list. I mean, then they're not going back to that one. The first time, the first time guys with Lou Amarumo, Shane Waldron, one of those guys. And then you got who else we got here? And we talked about Smith already. We talked about Ben Johnson, Averio. You
I
have
don't
that option as
understand the
well.
Averio love. He gets a lot of love around the league, and he was with the Rams, I believe, as a defensive backs coach or secondary coach. He went to the Broncos, I think, for a year. He's been with Carolina now. Carolina's defense has a lot of good pieces, but overall, it's not a good defensive team. I don't understand all the love that he's getting. I probably personally wouldn't be interested in him. I would be more interested in Anarumo or Waldron.
Uh-huh.
And I've
Gotcha.
always been the offensive coach first. Hire the offensive coach because you don't want turnover there. At this point, with the way the Raiders defense has played, even counting this year, they haven't been a good defensive team. Like, I'm not against getting a really good defensive guy in here that can get a good defensive staff and figure this out, because at some point the Raiders are going to have to play good defense. And
Yeah.
Aruma would absolutely, I mean, I would be interested in that one. He basically just went in there and shut down the 49ers last week, a high-scoring offense. He shut down Kansas City. It's not like Cincinnati, the Bengals are rife with elite defensive talent. Like, he's doing it with a bunch of guys that are solid. Like, he doesn't have superstars on that defense. And just week in and week out, they do their job. I wouldn't mind Dan Quinn. Again, both of the, if you're going to go the defensive route, I would need to know what's the plan with the offensive coordinator. Who do you plan on having as an offensive staff?
Exactly.
Someone that's worked with young quarterbacks too would be good. And then obviously, who's the backup quarterback going to be if the Raiders do go with a young quarterback? It's going to be someone with ties to whoever the offensive coordinator is coming in. But this is a decent list. I wouldn't say Harbaugh's in the clear here. I'm not a huge Harbaugh guy, but I would think that he's going to be in play. Maybe the timing of this has something to do with what's going on at Michigan. Who knows? There's ties there. My only concern there is if Mark Davis wanted Jim Harbaugh, he had to make one phone call last year or 2 years ago, and he would have been the Raiders head coach. And he chose not to do that from all accounts. So maybe he's realized the error of his ways and he wants to go that route. But again, with Harbaugh, like, what offense are they going to run? Like, what is he going to bring in here?
Yeah.
There's probably not a quarterback on this roster. I'm sure Aiden O'Connell's probably not the ideal quarterback for Jim Harbaugh.
The Bears
not that you were
could
going to
be.
make
The Bears
you're
could
not
be
going to make
involved
your
with
head
him, too.
coaching. Yeah, and you're not going to make your head coaching hire on who's going to do what with Aiden O'Connell. That's irrelevant. But I'm just saying, I don't think he's going to fit what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. So he's probably on the way out in the next year or two if you do that.
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be a good chance you're looking at a potential defensive guy that's been around before. So whether that's Schwartz, whether that's Quinn, whether that's Anarumo, an older guy, we'll see what happens with the search.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it has to be a wide one. It has to be one where we're not fixated on one character and doing, like, not fake interviews, but, like, I would say, like, interviews where, like, we know the result.
They need to hire the GM first.
I mean, we've been saying that we've been saying that forever on this podcast. I do want to see the GM get hired first. So that's going to be something that I definitely want to see. On the offensive side, you said no to Bieniemy. Why? Just because you just feel like he's not going to be that he won't get hired as a head coach from anybody, or just like it wouldn't fit the Raiders.
I just think he's had so many opportunities to get hired and he hasn't. There's probably a reason behind that. It's not like, I don't think that Washington Commanders are setting the world on fire now that he's away from Patrick Mahomes. That offensive line's not very good. Sam Howell's getting beat up every week. They've given up a ton of sacks. I just don't think he's shown enough with the Commanders away from Andy Reid and away from the Chiefs to say, yeah, this guy should be the next head coach.
Okay. All right. Ken Dorsey, no. 100% no on Ken Dorsey.
Bills don't even want him back as their offensive coordinator, so I don't know why he's on the list.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Bills fans.
Yeah, so yeah, I think, as far as like when the Seahawks went out and got Geno Smith, I was like, what are they doing? And then, but they've been a playoff team. They're in first place right now, and their offense looks pretty good with the combination of Geno Smith and Shane Waldron. So that'd be something that I would be very interested in to see his name on the list and see if they could talk to him as well too. So, yeah, this has been a crazy night as far as the Raiders firing their head coach, firing their GM, and firing Mick Lombardi as well. So they made sure they did not have him do his thing. And they're also the new offensive coordinator isn't going to be. So some people thought it was going to be Scott Turner. It didn't end up being Scott Turner. So we'll have to see about that. And for the guys who have these opportunities, the head coach, the GM, and this is their opportunity to. There's only 32 of these jobs, so this is a great opportunity for them to kind of see what they can do as far as that goes.
I will say this: I do think that Devontae Adams should have some say here. as far as what direction they go at quarterback and with the head coach. He shouldn't have the final decision. They should go to Devontae and say, hey, obviously we've made these moves. What type of offense are you comfortable in? Are there guys that you've heard of through people that play in the league that you know? Like, he should be able to give some input on what decisions they make. I do want to see this offense modernized. It's 2023. We're going to be talking about 2024. Like, this lineup and heavy jumbo and try to pound the rock and pound your chest. That's not how points are scored in the league at this time. You still need to run the ball. Don't get me wrong, but at some point you gotta use the whole width of the field. Everyone has to be an option. You have to get all these pieces involved. You have to understand not only how to script the first 15, but you still have to call another 45 to 55, 60 plays in a game. And it can't just be like random pick a play out of a hat with no concept of why you're running that against certain schemes. And the Raiders right now don't use the width of the field. They basically use the middle of the field.
And that's it.
And the defenses are jumping in there. And when Devontae on that stutter go, they got wide open late in that Lions game. Just watch the corner. I put the clip on all 22. As soon as Devontae goes to slow down and make a move, he just jumps inside by 5 yards, and Devontae blows right by him. But Devontae needs to have some say. If Devontae's going to be with the Raiders long term and stay for the next 3, 4, 5 years, he definitely needs to be involved. And what do you do with Josh Jacobs? Like, if you're going to go the rookie quarterback route, then you're going to have the ability to sign Jacobs and keep him around. Maybe the new regime doesn't want to do that, but the amount of dead money that's going to be coming to the cap, thanks to Dave Ziegler and some horrible contracts, might limit what this team can do in the offseason.
Yeah. I think the people who are tweeting at me to let Ziegler cook over the last year and a half, like, he may have looked the part, but when it came down to making decisions, he didn't have what it took to make quality decisions. I mean, they couldn't even, like, think about the fact that the Raiders don't even have a competent backup running back, like, that they can count on. Like, that's probably one of the easiest positions to get a solid backup in. And if Josh Jacobs went down, they don't even have a guy who can come in and play at running back. And I think that alone is a huge indictment of what the organization could not do. It was really ridiculous to see a lot of these issues. And I mean, the fact that people like Britton Brown and and Bryant Young and people it's just so many guys on this team who just don't give you anything. It's just like it's sickening.
Byron Young literally gives you nothing.
It's so bad. Like,
what about Neil Farrell and Matt Butler? They tried to rebuild the defensive line. They didn't even. I wouldn't even say they hit on anything. Like, they completely whiffed. It's like that cartoon of Bugs Bunny playing baseball, and the guy throws a super slow pitch and he swings at it like 5 times. Yeah, basically falls over. Like, that's basically what Dave Ziegler's drafts have been. Yeah, and how do you? I mean, I don't know. It's been really bad. It's next level bad. I'm not sure how you can. I never thought you can get worse than Mayock, but Mayock is. I mean, but it's been up in that level. I do think you have to be prepared, though, that the Raiders might have to give up draft assets to move up to get the quarterback they want, and they should. They should be aggressive.
They have to do it. I don't want to hear about almost.
They're not going to be able to fill all the holes that they have. They're still going to need to get some stopgap free agents, but there needs to be a direction. There needs to be a plan because, like we said, when Dave Ziegler came in, it's like, let's go get Chandler Jones, let's get Devontae Adams, let's re-sign all these guys, let's go for it. And they basically halfway through last season realized that was a mistake, and then they got nothing for most of those assets, and now. Who knows what's going to happen with Devontae in the offseason? If they decide, hey, we're going rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, and Devontae's like, I don't want to play with a rookie quarterback, then what do you do there? Do you hold his feet to the fire and hold him to the contract, or do you move on and try to get picks for him? So I would think that if they do move Devontae, it's going to be prior to the draft. I've seen a lot of people say, well, the cap hits less if you move him post June 1. There is no reason to trade him once the draft's completed. You hold on to Devontae. You play the next season and see what happens, because trading him in June and getting picks for 2025 does you no good, because you can play him in 2024 and then trade him prior to the 2025 draft.
Yeah, no question about it. So
not that I'm advocating for trading for him.
No, I mean, you gotta see what direction what direction, and then like they got to have somebody who's going to actually be, in a truthful way, kind of break things down for Mark Davis, and Mark Davis can't fall for like, hey, this is promising things that are not going to happen. I mean, the Raiders really should have probably rebuilt and blew it up then, and then who knows where they would be, but at least they'd be a young team with a roster and more salary cap room to do stuff without a lot of dead money, and they're the kings of dead money. Those two, they love some dead money.
It's interesting that we said that Jimmy G, the move to Jimmy G is probably what cost them their job. You could argue the decision to extend Derek Carr with the no trade clause set this whole thing in motion to start. They didn't have to do that. They literally could have let him play out the last year of that deal, franchise him, traded him for draft picks when they realized he wasn't the guy they wanted to move forward with. So they bungled the whole situation. We can start with Carr. They bungled that. They bungled Renfrow. They bungled Waller. They bungled the Chandler Jones situation. So there are misses all over the regime, and they didn't even make it 2 calendar years. And it's hard to do that. But thankfully, Mark Davis realized that this thing is going south, and it's going south in a hurry. I would think that Allegiant Stadium come Sunday when the Giants come to town is going to be a Raider party. That there's going to be a lot of fans that are really happy with the decision, regardless of the outcome of the game. Yeah. Aiden O'Connell, get ready. Wink Martindale is going to blitz. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at that kid, and they're going to come from everywhere. So,
is he? Though?
I'm not going to say the Raiders are going to win that game, but like it's going to be a tough game for the rookie in that game.
I mean, but aren't they going to do what the Raiders do against rookie quarterbacks? Just let them just chill and go like this and all that stuff like
Wink
that.
Martindale doesn't care who the quarterback is. He's bringing.
He doesn't.
Cover 0. Here it comes.
Here it comes. So it should be interesting. All right, Red Nation. Listen, our little emergency podcast here with myself and Ryan, because it was quite the night. Everybody was lit on fire, and then I don't know if it was like he got home from trick or treating, and he found out, hey, you know what, it's your job's over. But the 6-year contract, man, 10 years now, 6 years. Oof, man, Mark.
Well, they're not paying that Gruden contract anymore. They settled.
Yeah, it's all that. But geez Louise, that's just 6 years.
Can we just be like a normal franchise and give a coach like a 3 or 4 year deal? So if it goes south in 2 or 3 years, like you're not on the hook for many years to come.
What's a new coach comes in? What's a fair? What's a fair? I think 3 years is fair, right? Or is that, most coaches want more than that?
I'd say 4 for the head coach.
Okay. Yeah. So 4
2
years,
or 3 for
years.
the assistants.
Yeah, because you got to, because like you do want to be able to get move on from assistants if they're not performing well. So it is what it is.
10 years and 6 years, like that's my only concern with Harbaugh. If Harbaugh comes, what contract do you think he's going to want? He's going to want a 6, 7, 8 year deal.
Yeah,
does Mark Davis want to go down that road again? I don't think so.
I don't think so. And he also burns through the building in 2.5. So we all know that about Harbaugh as well. So, all right, thanks, Ryan. Ray Nation.
All right.
Take care, brother.